it's hard not to look at this IPL through the lens of the upcoming World Cup. And within that conversation, we have the debate about the wicketkeeper position. Now, we know Sanju Samson's had a really good season, and Ishan Kishan and KL Rahul have had a couple of innings, and but it's been middling largely. And we seem to have seen the return of the Rishabh Pant of old in last night's game where he scored 88 of 43. So we know Sanju Samson has his own fan base, and Rishabh Pant may be the emotional favourite for many. But who is your front runner at this stage of the tournament?
I think Pant has come back into contention very strongly. I mean, the big question mark was over Pant, because of the injury, because of the accident that he's had in a year and a half away from the game, from top class cricket. It's never easy to come, straight away into a big tournament like the IPL. There's the psychological scars that you nurse after such a big injury, and then obviously there is the competition, because that also you have to stave off. I think he's done extremely well for himself. I was particularly impressed in the last match, which he helped his team win Delhi against Gujarat Titans. It was a knock which will have actually convinced a lot of the selectors quite a great deal about Pant's return to full fitness physically, because he also kept wickets well, but also even in terms of the ability to win matches. Ultimately, the strong point for Pant has been, ever since he's made his international debut, is the X factor. He's the kind of guy who wins you matches from almost. I mean, he's done it a few times in test matches from impossible positions. So I think to see him in this kind of form will have been extremely pleasing for the selectors, for Rahul Dravid, and I would imagine even Rohit Sharma, without taking away anything from what Sanju Samson, Ishan Kishan, and KL Rahul have done in this season as wicketkeeper batsmen. I personally feel we might end up with a scenario where there are two of them who go to who are in the World Cup squad, not just one.
I was about to come to that. Do you see a scenario in which, let's say, Pant is the keeper and then they play Sanju purely as a batter?
It could be, or Rahul. Rahul, because of the long experience that he's had. Yeah. Not that Sanju Samson hasn't been around for a fairly long period. He also has been there. So it's a very vexing situation. We've discussed this earlier, Anirudh, that it's a challenging time for the selectors the next few days, because the team has to be announced, less than a week from now. So amongst the batsmen, front runners, and the names that we are talking about, Pant and Samson and Kishan and Rahul and whoever else, they can also be considered as specialist batsmen. So it's not only, if they come in as all-rounders, it makes their claim stronger. That's what it really is. But otherwise, it's a challenging situation for the selectors to pick the wicket keepers, to pick fast bowlers. Apart from Bumrah, who else? From the point of view of spinners, apart from Kuldeep and Jadeja, who else? And so on. So I think even amongst the batting, probable Abhishek Sharma, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Riyan Parag laying strong claims based on the performance in the IPL to be considered, very favorably.
Yeah. No, so that we're talking about Pant now. There seems to be a bit of a resurgence going on with the Delhi Capitals. They won their last 3 of their 4 games. And what, according to you, are they doing better now?
I think, it was a question of them getting, becoming a little more cohesive. I think they still have problems. Andre Norke is not in the kind of form that we've seen him in the previous 2-3 seasons. He's just giving away too many runs, and he almost cost them the match again. As against Gujarat Titans. So they need to kind of tighten up in their fast bowling. Khalil has been pretty good, but again, not towards the end. In the slog overs, he's very good in the opening spell. I also think that they need more runs from Prithvi Shaw at the top of the order. He's been a precocious player when he started out his career, much like Pant. But Pant, despite the injury, has kind of come back strongly, while Prithvi is still languishing. So this is his chance, whether he's not in contention, I know, or at least in strong contention for a place in the T20 World Cup. But he could make a big difference for his team where being in the IPL playoffs is concerned, apart, of course, from the likes of Warner and some of the others.
Yeah. And we also spoke about Sanju, and his team seems to be unstoppable. They've been table toppers for a while now, and they eased past Mumbai in the last game. And Yashasvi Jaiswal, who seemed to be a bit off color during the early part of the campaign, came back with an easy 100. So, how do you stop this team?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to stop them. They're on a roll, isn't it? But they've been on a roll even in previous seasons, and somehow approaching the playoffs, they seem to taper off for some reason. That's been Rajasthan's kind of rather, sad story of previous seasons. They've looked extremely good, extremely sharp, and then it just hit a roadblock. I hope it doesn't happen because they're such an exciting team. Talking of Yashasvi Jaiswal, I mean, we saw last season the kind of batting that he displayed in the IPL. Then we saw it in Test cricket. So, and he is, when I mentioned about the competition amongst Indian players, certainly, intensifying, because there may be 3-4 places available, so to speak, based on IPL form. Not all 11, 15, will be based on IPL alone. So if there are 3 or 4 places available, there's a huge fight going on, especially amongst the top order batsmen, wicket keepers, and the fast bowlers, as I mentioned, perhaps even the spinners. Akshar Patel throwing his hat in the ring very strongly with his batting performance, fielding well, also bowling reasonably well. So I think Jaiswal is somebody you can't disregard, because he's over the past 12 months, he's been such a prolific run getter at the highest level. That's what is important. When you consider somebody for the World T20, you look at him not just from the kind of runs that he's made, but whether he's got the mindset, the application, the resolve, the kind of the ability to play at on the big stage without flinching.
Yeah. And lastly, it seems like we were back in the pandemic when Marcus Stoinis was hitting those sixes in Chennai. There was pin drop silence from the crowd. And while that might have been innings of a lifetime, I might say, but I wanted to talk about what this loss does to CSK's campaign. Now, they've lost 2 on the trot, both to the Lucknow Super Giants, and they've lost at home, which is usually a fortress. So, where do they stand now?
Yeah, I think it leaves them wobbly. I mean, they're in the middle band, as we know. They're not amongst the top 3-4, and they're not at the bottom. But this is a very vulnerable band. Teams like LSG and Gujarat Titans also in this band, where you could stumble and then you reach a situation where you run out of matches and time, and then recovery becomes very difficult to reach the playoffs. So they need to really, pull their socks up. LSG, great win to beat Chennai, and Chennai is something very unusual, very rare. And therefore, for them, it's a great pump up. They won against Chennai both times. And for Chennai, it comes as a big setback, because this is their bastion, this is their fortress. For them to lose here will be psychologically, is a big dampener. And losing in the manner in which they did, running up a big score and then having the match in their control, firmly in the control. Stoinis comes out and plays an innings of a lifetime. I think also an innings which perhaps salvaged his own career with the franchise. If you don't play some at least once in a season or even twice in a season, come up with a performance like this for an international player, then the franchise owners start kind of reassessing your value to the team. But be that as it may, I think Chennai have some work to do. They haven't looked a bad team, they haven't looked a poor team, but they haven't looked the sharpest of teams as we've seen in this tournament. They started off well, then they've had a bit of a skid. So they need to arrest that skid very rapidly.
So that's it for this episode of Sports Room. We see you next time.
Thanks, Sanju.